idea behind the book is life's a stage. I'm in a very public place where I am working in broadcast, but also at the same time understanding that life happens in stages, right? And to always keep an eye about where the future is going, and to also enjoy the time that we've got at the moment, right? To make the most of the time that we have at this moment, but also to prepare for the future. And I think this realization came about when I had my child, when I was in my 30s and I had my child, and my focus was very much on my child when he was young, because I know that time is, that time being with him was very important. But at the same time, I also know that one day he's going to be 18 years old, which is what he is right now, and then he will have his own life. And then I don't want to be one of those people with the empty nest syndrome, right? So I wanted to prepare myself for what the future may be, and that he have his own life and that I have my own life. And so a very wise mentor once told me, children are temporary guests in your household, and as much as you love them, one day they're gonna fly, right? And they're gonna go off, right? So a little bit about a background about myself, for those of you who don't know me. So currently, I work for a business radio station, and most people would know me from there. But my background is in public relations. I used to work for a PR consultancy, and then after that, I worked with IBM for over 10 years as well. So that was my background in PR, working in a consultancy, working for a multinational. And during that period, I was always involved in radio and TV. So I was a news presenter for a station, and I continued working there for the longest time. In my book, I also shared a bit of background about how I got into broadcasting, and it was always part time until I took on this role. I think the last 10 years has been a lot more, a lot of new understanding about where my life has been. And one of the things that I always practice is this thing called the wheel of life, right? And that was my question to you: how round is your wheel? And I'll just share with you a little bit of my own life strategies about what I do every year in terms of setting goals, and knowing that, people always say, can I have everything in life? I believe you can have everything in life, right? But maybe not at the same time. Understand that things happen at different stages, and some things will take more priority, but not losing sight of other things as well. I'll just move on to the next slide, and talk about this thing called the wheel of life. You can Google this. There's no copyright to this. So I've known about this wheel of life for the longest time, and in my other book, I actually talk a lot about it. So I've known about it for the longest time, but how much of me utilizing and practicing it was something, right? And again, when we look about the wheel of life, right, you have to set goals in terms of your career, relationship and romance, right? Making time for fun, okay? Even now, you do have to make time for fun. And maybe you can't travel, which is what I love, right? But you can, find ways to make time for fun. Tomorrow I'm going to do a staycation in a hotel, because I haven't put clothes in a suitcase in a long time. So I just want to go through that feeling, and just stay with a friend, and we're going to do a little staycation, even though we can't get on state, right? Health and fit wellness, that's also very important. Spirituality, your faith, right? Finances, always keep an eye on that. Your personal growth, invest in yourself in terms of your personal growth, and making time for family and friends. So when I look at the wheel of life, one of the things that one of the things I talk about in the book is when this realization of practicing the wheel of life was when I actually went through a divorce, right? Only and that was when I was like, did I not spend enough time taking care of that relationship? Like, as much as you like to blame the other party, you also have to take responsibility yourself, right? And not be a victim, and say, where did I lose focus in terms of investing in that relationship? So even as you go through everything, make sure you make time for it. I'll just go through what is important to me. Like different years, I have different things. In 2015, in terms of fitness, right, one big goal was actually finishing a full marathon, right? And that was a big goal for me, but never losing sight of other things as well. Making time for friends, right? I always like to, at least once or twice meet up with friends, whether we go for a walks, whether we have, if we couldn't have our go out and makan, make time for a Zoom call and be in touch with someone, because friends are important, right? There are people that you need to spend time with, and there are people that if you don't invest in friendship, how can they invest back in you? So this is very important as well, who I put in my life, right? Looking at my career, fitness is also very important. My faith is very important. I think for me, that was the first thing that I looked at was I was going through a very troubling period in my life. My faith, I knew that I couldn't give until my own, your cup has to overflow. And if your cup is empty, it's very difficult to overflow in other areas of your life. So for me, it was my faith, and then looking to my fitness. Because why fitness? Because fitness gives you all the good hormones, good you give, good chemicals, your oxytocin, your endorphins, and all these sort of things, right? So I looked at all these things and decided to do that. So every year, I make sure that I set goals in these different areas of my life. So, if one of the things that you want to look at as well is, are you, when you look at your wheel of life, and it doesn't have to be you wait for a new year or anything like that, right? Just look at this and see, because when we do this little exercise at home, if you look at your career, right, on a scale of 0 to 10, right? Are you a 10? Where are you in terms of that space? In terms of your relationships and romance, where are you in that space? Now, if you're a 10 in all areas, your wheel is round, right? Your wheel is round. If not, your wheel is not round, your wheel can't move. And some areas needs to be improved, right? If you're 5 in all those things, why don't you make it a 6, right? What can I do to make it a 6 so that it continues to improve and grow as well? So I really like this very simple chart about, am I making time for this? Am I making time for community? Am I making time? If you look at the wheel of life, there's some that are 8, there's some that are 10. There's so many areas that you can look at, but how are you then growing to the next stage, right? So it was very important, if you do the simple exercise. I'm going to go to the next slide, right? One of the things that people always talk about, how do I grow? How do I develop, right? And this thing called the comfort zone. Every year, are you doing something a little different to get out of the comfort zone? This is taken from entrepreneur mindset, right? Comfort zone is where you feel safe and in control. I think if anything taught, if last year and even this year taught us anything, it's so different. There are many things you realize that you don't have control, right? But and so what happens, and you just want to stay in cocooned in that space, but really, how do you get out of that? And a lot of times, a lot of us are stuck in the fear zone, right? The lack of self-confidence, you find excuses, be affected by others' opinions. Okay, I think people subconsciously are always worried about what other people think. If you don't affect anybody's what rice bowl, if you don't hurt anybody else in the moment, in whatever you want to do, right? Don't be worried about other people's opinion. If I'm worried about other people's opinion, I'll be stuck in my house because I'm worried that the truck might, hit me and all that. So just don't be worried about other people's opinion, right? Now, you always want to go into the learning zone, right? And that means dealing with challenges and problems, right? Trust me, the challenges and problems come to all of us every day, but how do we get through this, right? Are we learning new skills? Are we extending our comfort zone and getting, and learning something? Because only then will you grow, right? And that's where you get to your growth zone, where you find your purpose, where you live your dreams, where you set new goals and you conquer objectives. Now, sometimes you will say, I don't know what my dream is, right? And um, put it out there. We talk about the big, hairy, audacious goal. Is there something that you really want to do, right? I have some, every year there's a theme for my life, right? And I have a theme for my life this year, which is, to think global, right? To think global in everything I do, right? Dreams are free, right? Now, if I say global, what do I need to do then to go global? What do I need to do differently to go global, right? And when you talk about finding purpose as well, sometimes you also don't know what your purpose is, right? But along the way, life gives you clues as well on what your purpose is. We're all given a platform for different things. For example, one of the things when I talk about purpose, apart from raising my son, one of the things I always feel that's important, where I'm an advocate for World Vision, is that all um, children should be given a fair chance, and the very basics that every child should get is education. And I find that so important. So for the last 20 years, I've been a child sponsor for World Vision, and so last year then they asked me to be an advocate because they know that I something that I believe in, and it's 20 years, right? And I've been given a platform to be able to share that, right? So that was something that's very close to my heart. So children's education. So one of the things that I work very closely with is World Vision and Dignity for Children, for those of you who are in Malaysia. So, and that is a fair chance for children. And even in the area where I cover, it's about clean water, right? And you think clean water, what's that got to do with education? A lot of people outside Malaysia and Singapore don't have access to clean water. And when they don't have access to clean water, they have to go out and collect water. And when they go out and collect water, they can't go out and get an education. So everything connects, right? So these are the different things that you do to get out of comfort zone. Earlier on, I talked about the wheel of life, right? Look at different areas, look at all the different areas, and how else can you get out of that comfort zone, right? It doesn't have to be just in your career. It could be like, exercising. I remember 10 years ago, I started exercising religiously, and I said, okay, I want to exercise every day, right? And this is someone who didn't exercise at all. And so I just joined a boot camp. I don't know anybody there, fit, unfit as, as anything, but look, it means that I will find new muscles I didn't know that hurt, but I know that in that process that I will actually be a lot better, right? And then after that, it started with, can I do a 10K? Then can I do a half marathon? Can I then do a full marathon, right? I think the first 10K for me was more eventful than the full marathon, because the fact that I can do some can run for 2 digits was a bigger achievement for me than a full marathon. So there are things that will get you out of your comfort zone. So whether it's in the area of fitness, whether it's in the area of anything else, right? Just it makes you feel uncomfortable, but you know that you'll grow. And then when you get to the growth zone, what was once uncomfortable then becomes comfortable, right? So just think about it when you look at this picture, right? Where do you want to get out of the comfort zone and the fear zone to get to the growth zone, right? And of course, we'll have questions later on little things that I did, or whatever questions that you may have. I'll move on to the next slide. Okay, so one of the things that I actually got myself certified in last year, and that's where I got a comfort zone, was in design thinking. And the whole idea behind design thinking is that you can design. Design thinking is usually used in development of products, right? And what happens with products? They call it an MVP, minimum viable product, and then they try to see whether this works or not. Now, if you look at your life, why don't you treat your experiments that you do and treat it as an MVP? And if the minimum viable product doesn't work, why don't you try something else, right? So designers build their way forward, build your future prototype by prototype, right? I look at what I've done in the last 10 years. It didn't happen overnight, right? So every year you just do something a little different in different areas. And then when you look back over 10 years, like, wow, there were things that I did every year that was different, that made up for something to where I am today. And you know what? 10 years is going to go by in the blink of an eye, right? I mean, if you look at 2010 to 2020, you're like, how did the 10 years go by? Now, what's going to happen in the next 10 years? It's up to you, right? Don't think that, don't worry if something doesn't happen right now, right? Understand that it also takes time to develop. Okay. Now, so this was the book that I read, called Designing Your Life. This is by this two Stanford journalists, Bill Burnett and Dave Evans, right? So this is a workbook, but they're both lecturers in this university, and they actually teach design thinking for products. And then they did a course called Design Your Life. And so I was very intrigued about that whole idea. When we take out the emotions in improving ourselves and growing ourselves, we're less fearful of what it is, right? And we say, okay, I tried this, doesn't work, but I'm glad I tried it, right? You've learned a new skill. I think one of the consulting firms, I'm not mistaken, I think it's Accenture, or it could be PwC, so don't quote me. We talk about spikes, right? As we move on in life, we talk about upskilling and reskilling and that sort of thing, right? And these are all spikes in your life as you create them. Getting education is a spike. Your work experience is a spike. Trying something new, right, that will add to your portfolio is a spike. Learning a new course is a spike. Reading a book is a spike. Every year I make sure I read a lot, right? So that I'm always constantly improving. If I were to promote myself or sell myself or grow myself, I have to improve. I have to be the best version of myself all the time, right? I'll just move on to the next slide. Okay. We talk a lot about mindsets, right? And I don't know what your feel about mindsets, right? Always be curious. I think that's a gift that has been given to us. Be curious. I always work on the model of I don't know what I don't know. and there's so many things I don't know. I don't know what I don't know, right? And then you get to that point where I know what I don't know, right? And then I know, and to that point where I don't know I know. Think of it like driving a car, right? Okay, you know, when you're young, you don't realize that, I need to learn to drive a car, or maybe not, right? But then after you say, okay, I know I don't know how to drive a car, and then you learn to drive a car. I said, okay, I now know how to drive a car. I know what I know. And now a lot of you are driving the car and shouldn't be texting, but you're texting, and and all that. You already, you don't know what you know already, because it's already been ingrained in you, right? So I'm try stuff, right? I want to, something that's not very natural for me is actually um, uh, drawing and making clothes. So what I did was I just took some time and learned pour art, did some art classes and all that. I'm not great at it, but it was just something that I want to do differently, right? And one of the things is you can always reframe problems, right? I mean, last year were lots of opportunities to reframe problems. Like I said, last year was like, I'm a very social person. I go to a lot of events and all that. So all these events didn't happen last year. So what do you do? What do you do with that time? What do you do with? And I was like, wow, I got extra time right now. Why don't I start writing? Why don't I start doing something, right? So there's always a different perspective. I know that when you talk to mothers who are having to work from home, they get very, very stressed also at the same time having to teach their kids. But also at the same time, they're like, wow, I've never gotten to be able to spend so much time with my kids. So there's always a way to reframe things and look at it from a positive perspective. Everything, look at it from a positive perspective. What can I learn from every experience, whether it's good or whether it's bad, right? And know that it's a process. Know that sometimes whatever emotions that we have, express it, feel it, right? Go through the emotion. If you're angry about something, you're sad about something, don't hide it. I mean, if you have to talk to someone about it or process it, write it, journal it down, right? It's a process of growth, right? And ask for help, right? There are people around that you can talk to. I have lots of friends who are also mentors, who are also coaches. And even though I've gone through coaching, sometimes we have our blind spots, and right, and I can't see certain things because I'm too close to the problem. So then I spend time with a friend, and then just go through this thing and ask, and I actually get people to coach me back, right? Because I need to look at it from another perspective, for ask for help. People who experience it and people who have gone through certain things, make sure you can always ask for help, and don't be shy about that. I think women generally don't have a problem with that. Maybe men are a bit shy about asking for help. So don't be afraid. There are people who are willing to help you. Yeah. Okay. I'll move on to my next slide. Okay. One of the things that we actually do in the Design Your Life course, and again, I won't go through so much, right? But if you can do this simple exercise, they call it the Odyssey Plan, right? If you plan your life in the next 5 years, right? What is the life one? What is it that you currently have right now? And where do you see yourself 5 years from now, right? And it's not just in terms of, again, your career, whether it's in the form of relationships. I hope you're married with children. This is the current plan that you have, but look at that earlier point about the wheel of life. Where do you think you'll be 5 years from now? Okay. Now, if life one disappeared, that's life two. Say, you've unfortunately lost your job or something unexpected happens, right? What then is your trajectory in the next 5 years? How are things going to be different in the next 5 years, right? Just, be mechanical about this process and just think what happens, going back to real life and looking at all what will happen in the next 5 years. People always like life three, right? And if money an issue, an image is not an issue, what is the next 5 years going to be like? Right. Do that simple goal in that area. Okay, year one I should be doing this, year two I should be doing this, year three I should be doing this. So look at it and then see what you can do. So do this very simple exercise a little later on. It's the year, since we already went through 2021, it's the year of the ox. It's supposed to be better. The vaccine is here, right? The vaccine is here. I was saying yesterday on radio that there is light at the end of the tunnel. Yes, we're still in the tunnel, but there's light at the end of the tunnel. So what is going to be different, right? I'll just go to the next slide. Okay. Now, as maybe you can take a screenshot of this as well, right? As you're going through this exercise, spend this weekend maybe, spend some time doing that. As you're doing this plan, which plan excites you the most? I've done this with some people, and some people say, life three excites me. Money and image is not an issue. I'm very excited about doing something as they're going through this process. Some people very very happy with their current state of life, and they can see that's happening right now. Okay. um, Again, as you're going through that, something that bothers you as you're going through that, which questions do you have about taking any of these plans, right? I don't know whether I have the money to do it. I don't know whether I can do this in 2 years. What will people think, that kind of thing. But when you talk even questions like, I don't know if I have the money to do something like this. I'm very excited about it, but whether I have the money, maybe the next question would be like, how can I make the money? Right? So it starts you on the thinking process, it starts you thinking, right? And as you're doing this plan as well, which plan feels draining, right? And if it's something that's draining you, it's not going to help you, right? Recognize what's draining you and how can you remove it? How can you improve on it? Who can you ask for help from it? Okay. So what do you notice as you reflect and compare your different lives? What gets you excited? What gets you, I don't like this trajectory. I'll share a little bit about when I decided to take on leaving, my previous job to this current role, right, to where I am at BFM. um, you know, uh, I was very IBM is a very comfortable place, and it's at that point where it really took care of me. I have enjoyed my whole time there, but I always wondered at that point, is this it? Right? Is this what I want to do for the rest of my life? Is there all there is, right? So it was reflection, and I'm sure that if I could be coasting, right, I could be drifting, and then I wouldn't know this life that I have, right? It was a decision of reflection. Actually, that year was the year I took a coaching course, and it was a 30% pay cut to leave my comfortable job, right, to join this startup, which was unproven, not making money, but it was just something where I was just looking at, and I didn't know about this life one, two, three, but I was just thinking where my life is going to be in the next couple of years, right? So it was those moments that I decided to make that change, right? And you can actually prototype or test out any of these plans, right? And so this is where people say, do I have to quit my job? Or if I just put it from a career perspective, because most of you are probably looking at it from this career perspective, or, do I have to quit my job to do this? Do I have to do that? You don't have to, right? For the longest time, for those of you who are in Malaysia, you'll understand hashtag dua kerja. For those of you not in Malaysia, I've always had something else that I'm doing because I'm just very curious. I don't think I'm defined by my job. I don't think I'm defined by anything, right? I always like to do different things. So I've always tried out. So like as I was saying, when I had a full-time job, I had a part-time reading news, I had, doing different things as well. There's some suggestions on how you can prototype or test out any of these plans, right? And I'll just go to the next slide. Okay. Make conversations with people doing something you might like to do. If you're not on LinkedIn, if you're not on all these things, right? Get on LinkedIn, start talking to people and ask them what it is, right? And people are actually very open to sharing, right? Like, let me buy you lunch. Now we can go out. It's post MCO, you can go out and have lunch. So you can actually say, I just want to hear what it is that you do. Sometimes some things look so glossy from the outside, but then you hear the reality of it. And maybe when you hear the reality about it, you still love it. Why not, right? But make conversations, talk to people who are in that particular area that you like to do. They're doing something different. Have conversations. Shadowing professionals, right? Maybe some people are just more open, okay with you to spend that time with them to talk about it. Maybe you can say, can I see what you do from home, since we're all working from home right now, and just find out what goes on in there. Maybe 1 week unpaid exploratory project that you can work with. Go for an internship. go for a midterm. A couple of years ago, we had someone joining us at the radio station, and she has print experience. She's been in PR. She's been in what? And she says, "Look, I'm in between jobs. This is not what I want to do at the moment, but I've never tried radio. I've never tried radio in a business station. Can I come and work as a midterm, right?" And I said, "Yeah, there's no role here. And then of course we can't afford to pay her as well." She said, "Yeah, no problem, right?" And I've had, I think, definitely two midterms that have been at BFM, and they've gone on to do other things as well. But it was learning experience. They met people, and or it could be something that they want to do, right? But they actually took the time, and people are quite open. And sometimes the midterm will say, "I don't need to be paid. I don't need to be paid if you're in between. If you have that luxury, and you just want to learn something new, why not, right?" A scaled down version of whatever you want to do. For example, you say, "Actually, I want to be a baker. Actually, I want to do this as a business or what have you," right? Instead of putting everything down to start a restaurant, maybe you can try home baking. Maybe you can try catering first, right? And see whether this is a possible strategy. So you can always check it out, right? And see whether this is something that's viable, right? And of course, there are, other suggestions, and maybe you all can chime in as well and give some suggestions as to what you can do. No, so these are some ideas about designing your life, right? Actually spend some time. I think it's your life. It's worth it to spend some time investigating, researching about how it can be better. So in my book, I talk about the 5 stages of me, my growing up years, my life living in another country, born in a very small town in Brunei. And then after that, the teenage years, which was my rebel years, I had to leave the what I thought, what I knew as home, to another place, And at 14, as you're going through all the teenage angst, and yet you have to leave the country and make new friends. So, but that was also a really interesting time because I also had my first job there. I tried different things there as well. And then after I went into my establishing years in my 20s, working and finding out what I wanted to do, and decided to go into PR. And then my cocoon years. My cocoon years was my work from home years when I was working in IBM, and I had a job that allowed me to work from home, so that I can actually watch my son. Even though I was still technically working, but my priority at that time, my focus, if I look at the wheel of life, that was the time that I felt was important to be with him. And of course, then deciding where I want to be in the next couple of years, because I think life is full, right? Life is, I'm very excited about what the future is, despite whatever is going on. I think technology has opened us to a whole new world, right? For people who, if we were to do this in a live event, maybe a lot of you cannot make it, but because it's just you turning on the computer, right? Here you are, right? And we can communicate and chat. I think this is a really important time as you talk about retirement. To me, be fit, be healthy. That is so important. If anything, as much as possible, what is it that you need to do? Because health is wealth. If anything has proven to us this year, it is about making sure you're fit. And when you're fit, right, you give clarity to whatever you want to do. That's number one, right? Look at, if I were to look back at the book, what were the things? I don't know how much you love your work, but if you look back at your growing up years, there might be clues as to what you are good at and what you're interested in, right? And maybe you want to look at learning those skills or relearning those skills or updating those skills. And whatever you're doing right now, how can you actually maybe turn into consulting or even help out in the community to expand in those skills, right? And I believe that's important, that this continues to be active, this continues to grow. I hope that sort of helps you, because I think this is really important right now. But health is wealth, very, very important. To invest in that first, and when you've got that, you have the quality of life to do lots of things. So it's exciting time for you. Okay, I'm with you. Yes, you can have a complete life without any romance relationship. Ask me, but it is important to me, right? But okay, we this is again a very personal to me, right? People always, and that's the thing, living in the Asian society as well, right? You always have to people's gonna ask you, especially during Chinese New Year or any festival, Dakawin, are you married, right? Especially, during this period. No, you don't have to, right? You can find fulfillment in other areas. In my faith, marriage is a gift, singleness is also a gift. Take this time to do a lot of things what you can do without having to explain anything to anybody, right? You can be complete and successful without having any romance in your life. Make sure you're truly happy about it, right? And don't again, don't worry about other people's opinion. There's so many things that you can do right now, like I said, to be able to do that. If you do meet someone, or if you're meant to meet someone, that's a bonus, right? And that's the thing, right? You know what we've been sold on in all this romance rom-coms. You complete me. You had me at hello. No, no one completes you. You complete yourself. If you're not complete and you meet someone else who's not complete, you're going to have two very unhappy people. Make sure you complete yourself so that you're a whole person, and the person that you meet is also whole, right? No one's, going to be determining your happiness, right? You determine your happiness and your joy, right? Try, like I said, I was sharing about prototypes as well. I don't know if those ideas can actually help you. Maybe you just start with a conversation, right? Start a conversation with someone you're in a particular career that you're interested in, and have that conversation. Research a little bit more, read up a lot about it, read up about the other things, right? Don't come to a standstill and you're like miserable. Read about it, talk to someone about it, see if there are internships right now that you can actually do, uh, you know, um, volunteer for projects that you can take part in, right? And get out of that fear zone, right? So afraid, you're in that fear zone. How do you get to that learning zone? Maybe before you get to that growth zone, what you just want to do is to get to that learning zone and say, and then you realize that maybe from there you actually enjoy what you do, right? I mean, I love what I did. I love what I did in PR, and it's enhanced my where I am right now. It's a spike in my career. So I really appreciate of that experience. It has from what I'm doing right now in journalism has added on to that as well. So nothing is ever a waste of time, but just start simple steps. Talk to someone. Get a little bit more. There are all these Facebook groups. There are also LinkedIn groups. All those things that you are interested in doing. Find out what happens in that space. The fact that you are moving and in motion, right, already gives you the adrenaline to just take that little step further. So, these are things I do, and I'm like, if it doesn't work, it doesn't work, right? I've experimented with pole dancing. It didn't work, right? Or maybe I don't have the dedication for it, but it's fine, right? I had a good laugh. I was just like, what's there? It's just put it out to experience, something to talk about during webinars and make everyone laugh at the same time. So recently, I've gone on this program called Flow, right? And this program actually talks through different things, right? So it could be just what happens at the beginning of the day. Like today, just FYI, I'm on this program, and today is they give you a little mantra to go through, right? So, and you can actually. So today's mantra is, your only limit is your mind. How apt, right? And they actually have a little card and music, and the card says boundaries. What are the boundaries that whatever it is, right? And your only limit is your mind. So as I go through the day, all right, I listen to music this morning, I look at the card, and your limit's mine. At the end of the day, I actually write about that. But it could be just like, whatever's troubling you, whatever that so they have you have if you go online as well, there's so many things that you can find online on how you can journal. So it could be prompters that you can work with, or it could be about whatever's going through your mind, and you'll be surprised. Whatever's troubling you, sometimes when you write it, it actually helps a lot to give you a lot more clarity. I find that really helps. Journaling is something that's very powerful. Some people prefer to talk, some people prefer to journal, some people prefer to do other things as well. So, it doesn't have to be a long journal as well. I'll show you another thing that I have. It's a little booklet that I've got. Every day, one good thing that has happened to you, and then just one line, one good thing that happened to you, and collect it over 5 days. So tomorrow, another day. And then over 5 years, you see, wow, five good things that happened to me on this day. and over 5 years, right? And you'll be surprised if you own if you focus on the good. There's a lot of good that happens to you every day. This morning I went walking and I walked by this house and I saw cashew nuts, right, growing on a tree, right, and that got me excited. Wow, cashew nuts! I've never seen that on a tree. So whatever, you that to me was exciting, right? So if you look for the good, you will see the good in the smallest thing. You've got your health. Better, not bitter. And I talk about this all the time. This is, I guess, something that was popularized by Nelson Mandela, and he says, about it started off with drinking, no point drinking poison and expecting someone else to die. But, the whole idea is that it's so easy to be bitter. It's so easy. And I'll tell you where that came from. It's so easy to be bitter about anything. You want to be bitter about the government. You want to be bitter about a lot of things, right? You can go down that downward spiral and being bitter. Um, and I decided to be better. And I remembered this prayer 10 years ago as I was going through, a really dark period in my life, right? I don't want to be bitter because that's, poison in your heart. I want to be better. And I didn't know what better meant, right? I didn't know what better meant. And like I said, the first thing I focused was on my faith and how can my cup be full, right? And then I don't know, it got me to say, hey, maybe I should get fit. Okay, maybe I should one day write a book. Maybe I should one day, so in to be better in all the areas of my life, right? How can I be better in my relationships? How can I be better in my career? How can I be better in my relationship with my son? How can I be better in my faith? So these are things that you can be better. So when I talk about my life mantra, to be better, not bitter, is one thing. I have yearly themes. Like I said, this year's theme is growth. Last year's theme was actually likeness. I was talking about being solid, right? To my friend. My friend said, "You're the most solid person. You can't get any more solid than that. You'd be like a piece of wood." And I'm so glad last year's theme was likeness because of what has happened last year, right? And to have a likeness, despite what was going on last year, right? To have a likeness, in a view of likeness. So maybe you want to look at a theme for the year as well. I don't know what area you're looking at, okay? When you ask them for their support, why do you need their support? Is it asking for money that you need their support? You carve out time and do your thing, right? Some people don't understand. People are okay. I've done things where my mother doesn't understand and she loves me, right? And she doesn't understand. She's thinking, you too tired, lah, you too, you're wearing it. So they don't understand. The story. If you see a rabbit chasing no, a dog chasing a rabbit, the dog is chasing a rabbit. Most of the time people, don't see the rabbit and they just see a crazy dog running, right? So that's where they're coming from. They think it's a crazy dog just running around, right? Because you're chasing after the rabbit. So if you maybe you want to explain to them what I need from them, is it just giving me a little bit of time because I want to take up, drone flying? That's my escape. It's my happy time. It's my joy. It's my what? So maybe it's having that conversation, unless you're asking for money. I don't know about that. If you're asking for money, maybe that's why you're not getting any support. So I have an 18-year-old, okay, an 18-year-old right now. He's going through university, going to university, and so I find that okay, this is my thing. Always make time to communicate. Always make time to say sorry when you're wrong. Always make time. I really salute you. I don't have five. I have one, and even then, that's a challenge, right? So if I am wrong, I just want to be very transparent with my child that mom makes mistakes and mom can say I'm sorry, right? Because that's important for them as well, so that it works both ways, right? And that I'm not perfect. He didn't come with a manual. I wish he did, right? Someone should better write a book about it. And so that's the open thing. And he's seen me at my lowest. He's seen me at a higher, at my peak as well. So I would just say, make time for them. Okay, one of the things as well, as a single mom, I'm very fortunate. I had my ex-mom-in-law, even though I was divorced, still living with me because she's and my mom coming in to help me, and they were very stabling factors in my life, and I needed the support structure. So to me, time is important, right? Time is important, and what is the best use of my time? So I didn't go around driving my son to school because that was not the best use of my time. I didn't go around driving him to tuition. I brought the tuition teacher to the house. I didn't spend my weekends grocery shopping. I get that delivered to my house. I didn't spend my time cooking. I got dinner catered. But I had time to communicate with him. I had time to talk to him because I wasn't tired, right? So I wasn't. So if you have that possibility to outsource what is not necessary, or maybe get your 17-year-old, the older kids to help out so that you're able to spend time to talk, I think that's really important. That we keep the communication open. And like now he's 18, I can't be the tyrant, right? I can't be the tyrant anymore. It's about communicating. So, that is important. Well, buy mine. That's one. But there's plenty, right? Whatever you're going through, and of course, you go through times that they would have their, personal development section and all that. The lineup. One of the first books I read was called The Magic of Thinking Big, right? And it's different things at different stages in my life, right? I'll just go to the bookstore. I suggest you go to a time bookstore and look at a book title that shouts at you. That's what I do. Sometimes I just go, interesting title. Look at the back, look at the table of contents, and then like I learn something new, right? My attitude is that I will learn from everything, from everybody I meet. I will learn from every book I read. There'll be sometimes it's just that one line that gets me thinking and getting me on a trajectory. I have learned something because it's people's wisdom, right? That I can borrow from. It's time saved that I can borrow, that I can get from a book. So there's lots, like just like I suggest, right? Maybe go online. If you can't go to the physical store, go online right now and just check out a book title that whatever you're going through at the moment, and see what appeals to you. So that's my investment. I always put 10% of my revenue, income, what have you, into my own growth, right? Into my own development, because this is so important. I've always got to be ahead of myself, because but that's the kind of person I am. And I think it's really important as well. Education doesn't stop at university. Education continues, right? So yeah. Will you be having any book signing session? Thank you for buying my book. Book signing, a bit difficult now, right? Uh, get connect with me on LinkedIn. Connect with me on LinkedIn. Let's chat. And I can, let's see if we can meet one on one, and I can sign your book. There you go. Everybody buy the book and try to meet with me one on one, because it's a bit challenging having events right now. I would love to have had a book launch as well, but it's just such a weird time, right? But yeah, connect with me.